past the hour, we have breaking news in the Abrego Garcia case. The Fourth Circuit just denied the Trump administration's attempt to stay the order requiring the government to facilitate the return of the Salvadoran citizen who was a resident of Maryland who was mistakenly deported. Joining us now, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin, staff writer for The Atlantic, Nick Miroff, and senior writer at Slate covering courts and the law, Mark Joseph Stern. So, Lisa, what's exactly the latest on this case? What did this court say?
Court basically said that they are going to allow Judge Paula Zinnes of the District Court in Maryland, she's the trial judge who's been overseeing this case, to continue with her bid for discovery, for fact-finding, to determine if the government is deliberately flouting her earlier orders, and if so, who is to blame for that. Jose, let me take a step back, if
Please
I can, for a second.
It's always complicated for me.
It's always, well, these cases are incredibly complicated, but this case, the Abrego Garcia case, and the Alien Enemies Act case that's been proceeding before Judge Boasberg, they all sort of emanate from the same day and a same constellation of facts. There were 3 flights that left the United States that day, full of alleged Venezuelan members of Tren de Aragua. Mr. Abrego Garcia was on the 3rd of those flights.
And he's Salvadoran, and
Correct.
They say that he is MS-13.
Right, and we have since learned from the government, or at least the government has represented that 3rd flight consisted of people who were not subject to the Alien Enemies Act proclamation. But there is an Alien Enemies Act case proceeding in front of Judge Boasberg with respect to the first 2 of those flights. And then you have the case in front of Judge Zinnes about Mr. Abrego Garcia, who was, according to the government, sent to El Salvador as an administrative error. But she and Judge Boasberg are right now in the process of trying to determine the same thing. They both have an intuition. Judge Boasberg has more than an intuition. He said he's had probable cause. They both have an intuition that there has been some deliberate flouting of their orders, and they are trying to find out exactly who is to blame for that. Now, given this Fourth Circuit opinion today, Judge Zinnes is within her rights to continue along that fact-finding path and allow the plaintiffs to take depositions, to issue, which they already have, interrogatories, which are written questions to which they are allowed to get written responses. And then by next week at around this time, they will come back to her. And if they think they need additional depositions, they can request those from her.
Okay, so Lisa said that 3rd flight, which is the Abrego Garcia plane, he was on that one. That one was still in U.S. territory when Boasberg gave his order.
Correct, but the government has represented to Judge Boasberg in that case that 3rd flight did not consist of any members of Tren de Aragua who were subject to the president's proclamation. Rather, they were people who had existing orders of removal or other reasons to get them out of the country. But of course, we know that's not true.
Right, Abrego is if anything, if the government is correct, it was part of MS-13, which of course is very dubious.
And also, more importantly, he had what's called a withholding of an order of removal. He had a prior adjudication going back to 2019 that said, even though an immigration court had already ruled that he could be deported, he could not be deported to his country of origin, El Salvador, because he and his family feared persecution there based on past contacts with a gang in El Salvador.
Nick, President Trump responded to reporters asking about this last part of the case. Take a listen.
Will you take steps to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and put him in front of a judge?
Well, I'm not involved in it. I'm going to respond by saying you'll have to speak to the lawyers, the DOJ. I've heard many things about him, and we'll have to find out what the truth is.